Hi, everybody. It's the CC and JT amateur where production values go to die, obviously. Oh my gosh, sorry, we're just sort of picking up here. What we're doing is we're doing this. We've invited writers from around the world to join us on our regular podcast, the CC and JT Amateur Hour, where we've had fun, interviewing writers from all around the world, from between Carson City, Nevada, and England, of all places, and all points in between. But this time we're going to go a little bit closer and we're going to have Angela on again. So Angela was on with the Nevada Author Network. We're having her on our regular podcast and we're so very happy to have her. Hi, Angela. Hold up book. Hold up book. Angela. There's Angela's book.
Yes.
Which I also see on the shelf behind you, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
One of them.
Is it?
Yay.
So
And
Angela,
your sword, too.
and your sword
Cool.
too. So Angela, introduce yourselves and tell us about your books and everything.
Yeah, so I'm Angela Laverghetta, and I write modern and historical fantasy. And currently, I have a finished duology, The Buried Knight and The Hidden Druid. And I am currently set to have out my anthology of small works, which I'm really excited about because it's a special edition only through me. So I'm really excited about that. And on the side, I do some developmental editing, and I make history videos on TikTok.
I've been watching those.
Yep.
Yay! I have a lot of fun with them. They're great.
I have to admit that we are kindred spirits in that I love history and historical research. So I'm really enjoying your TikTok series. The one about witches has been fascinating, and I'm looking forward to whatever you're researching because the book that you put out, the Buried Knight, I just we had a book fall off our shelf over here. So the Buried Knight, my question about this is it's Arthurian legend, which, people have done before, but you decided to set it in Carson City, Nevada. How did that come about? It seems a little bit like an odd pairing.
It does, right? Yeah, so when I started writing, I was like obsessed with King Arthur. I had so many books. I was doing all the like history research about it and the mythical research, and I had it in my head that I had to write this perfect King Arthur book or I was, or I was going to fail as an author. Like, this is what I have to do. And of course, I like blocked myself like because I put so much into this perfect book. So I decided, you know what? I'm not going to move away from King Arthur, but what I need to do is I need to separate it completely from everything I'd been reading and stuff. And what better separation than to shove it into Nevada? So I made it a modern fantasy instead of
I,
historical fantasy.
I think it really worked well, though, because especially as a local, I really enjoyed the references you put into places like the Nevada State Museum and the Brower Bath Mansion, walking down Curry Street. So I could really picture all of this happening here in town. And the book that I recently released that I set in Virginia City, when you had actually your characters go up and go into a mine, it was just kind of like, oh yes, we're definitely, we're kindred spirits
But
in many
definitely.
ways.
No, I had gone on. So my husband and I during October, so they do ghost walks during the whole summer, but in October they do their one all day ghost walk where there's continuous tours going. And so my husband and I, we lead a tour every year. And the first year I did it, I was like, there is so much here. Like, I love these places. And the history in just a small little historic district is amazing. And so I'm like, you know what? This is calling to me, and that was why I was just like Carson City. Yep, 100%.
That's awesome. I've done those ghost tours too, and they're so much fun getting to. I actually led tours at one point, and I sat in the Edwards house. I'm trying to remember. I think it may have been only the Edwards house one year. I did it on the street more often than not, but those are fun.
So the Arthurian legend, you're deep into it. I have to say that CC used the phrase kindred spirits before, but in that way we're kindred spirits because Arthur is my real middle name. So when you have a real middle name like that, you kind of get into it. How early were you stuck with this legend? How do you think it influenced your writing, not just in the fantasy, but across the range?
Yeah, no, I, of course, I always loved Sword in the Stone, but I don't think that truly pulled me into the legend. I just thought it was really fun that they got to turn into animals and there was a fun witch who, they had a duel. Like I loved it that way. But I was about 14 or so, and I found this book at a garage sale called The Road to Avalon, and it was like a romance, and I'm not really huge into romance, but it had a lot of historical elements in the romance, and it taken the myth and just created this believable story. And I was just hooked on this whole idea of what if everything is believable? Like, what if these myths, are real? I mean, I know it's a conglomeration of all of this stuff, but the idea of it being real really appealed to me. And so I just started reading everything I could, every King Arthur fiction I could read, every King Arthur mythology I could read, and then I would say that the whole idea of writing historical fantasy came from that, because I loved the history so much, but I wanted that fantasy element. And I really think that's when it solidified, that whole idea of you can have historical, but you can also put that fun fantasy in. So you can have those real facts, you can have those real places, but it doesn't, preclude you from having all the fun fantasy parts too. So I think it totally, affected my writing from then on.
So you mentioned that now you have a book of short stories, I believe, coming out, and you're going to be selling those yourself. How are you going about doing that? Because we have a bookstore that we do through Square. So is that similar to your process? And if you've already been doing this, have you been very successful with it?
I don't know if I've been successful of anything that I've done in my indie career, but I just, you just keep going, right? You just keep trying. So I have a Shopify shop. So I put up my first book on that, and so now my both books are on there, and now this anthology is up there, technically for pre-order, so that in September 1st I can start sending them out. I really liked that it was all contained. And when I heard about it, I went to a convention and they were talking about Shopify and how it handled a lot of the, when all the apps have to be filtered into to a website. They handled that, and I'm not very computer savvy. I can figure it out, but I don't intuitively know how to do stuff. And so I liked that whole it's all contained thing. So I put up a Shopify shop. I'm not successful with it, but I keep hoping that it will eventually, pan out to be self-sustaining, but I also like how it looks, and I like that people are used to going to those type of websites, and clicking those buttons are familiar to them, and they don't feel like it's something that they don't know if it's going to work or if it's not safe or something, because everyone's used Shopify. So yeah,
Right.
I liked that a lot.
Have you tried linking that with your TikTok account? Because I noticed, I think we had just gotten a message recently. We opened or we added to a TikTok shop. I'm still not even sure how this works completely, but it mentioned something specifically about connecting to Shopify. So have you tried that yet, or is that something you might look into?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to look into that, especially since these history videos that I've been doing, seem to be doing pretty well. I get views on them, might as well apply my bookstore to that and help with the discoverability. Yeah, no, I'm definitely going to look into that. Thank you.
I think that that's common throughout these interviews is the struggle, the challenge, and the blood, sweat, and tears, which is called the cover, the book cover. So holding up your wonderful book cover again, this is, if we were to make a list, this is definitely in the top tier of book covers. But book covers for every writer is just a trial. Um, how did you come about, work did you do this, or did you have a designer do this?
It's funny. I love that cover. I really
Yeah,
do.
it's a great cover, even though the B is still upside down. But
It's
anyway,
upside
But it's
down.
cool.
Well, it makes you stare at it longer, right? You're like,
uh,
what's wrong with this cover? Um, I do love it. I had someone make that one and the Hidden Druid cover. I actually should get them changed, as because again we're frustrated with covers, right? It is not genre accurate. It screams romantasy, and I am not a romantasy writer. I think I just loved it so much. I was like, I'm using it, and didn't really think about what the story, what I wanted to convey to the reader. So I'm going to keep them for now just because I do love them. But yeah, it's always a trial because you get those covers and then you look at it and go, that's not
Yeah.
actually going to work.
Yeah.
Yes, and I don't know how well this shows up, but the Hidden Druid is very similar to the Buried Knight, and they really are very eye-catching covers. I love how the sword is actually incorporated into the title and
Hmm.
everything. I think it's a wonderful job. I understand, it may not read the right genre to you, but I still think they're absolutely beautiful.
And they definitely pop. I mean, they
Yes.
definitely grab the eye. So that I think they're just wonderful, wonderful covers. And did you is this designer somebody who is public? Maybe you can share. Maybe we can drive a little business to them, or are they?
Yeah, they are. I got them on Etsy. They are a
Uh,
newer
okay.
cover designer. I didn't actually go to the designers first. I looked at everyone. I just kind of scrolled, like doom scrolled forever. Looking, okay, I don't like that. I don't like that. And then I saw that, and I went immediately to that person's Etsy shop and bought it. I think I wrote it in the actual book here. Let me see, because she is. ANK Book Designs. So yeah, so she is a book designer. I think she does mostly romance covers. From looking at her stuff, it's mostly romance covers, but those were her few fantasy covers that she was doing. Yeah.
Well, it's an excellent, excellent cover.
And another thing, since we've done some book events together, one of the other things that I'm really fascinated by is the way you set up your table, because you take your sword and you put things out, and it's really eye-catching. So, how did you get that idea? And do you think it really helps drive people to stop to talk to you? Because that's one of the challenges with doing these book events, is to really get people to, because they tend to kind of look over us as they're walking by. So how did you come about doing that?
Okay, it's actually kind of a thing I grew up with, which sounds funny, but my mom used to do ceramics. In the 80s, ceramics were like the big deal. Like if you went to crafts fair, you saw like at least 3 or 4 tables with people doing painted ceramics. And that was what my mom did. She did it for, extra income. And so she's artistic like me, and she would make these tables, and where other people were doing the same thing, they were always coming to my mom's table because she'd have it all just set up, and she'd have it in layers and levels, and just visually beautiful. She'd always have lights and something moving and making noise, and people were just drawn to her table. And I grew up with that, knowing that get people's attention, and then telling them, hey, does this look interesting, and of course not pushing past that, but at least just getting their interest in. So yeah, and so then when I went to go start my table, I was like, okay, what about my books is the most interesting? Who doesn't love swords? Like that's like
Right.
people are like, oh, you have a sword, and then lights, and then levels, and all of that together, just to pull people in and be like, hey, you might find this interesting, and if you do, come on over this way. Yeah.
No,
Well,
I think it works great.
the presentation is wonderful because
Hmm.
I think the first event we did was at the museum, the Nevada
Yep.
State Museum. We're sitting across from you, and during the low times, I'm just over there and I'm just picking out the stuff that you've done, which is fun because we're going looking at our stuff and we said, well, we have a book.
We're upping our game a little bit, though. We've ordered some
Good.
new things for
We're
the
learning,
we
so
are.
so that's all your fault. Thanks a lot. Okay, so we've got to know a little bit about Angela, and that's Act One. So we're going to go ahead and dive into Act Two, which is the 7 questions. Now, we model these questions on an actor studio with
James Lipton.
James Lipton, and so we've modified these questions. So what it is in an effort for the viewers of this video to learn a little bit more about the writer. And we sent the questions beforehand, so you had a chance to read them, whether or not you actually opened the emails. But so we're going to dive right into these questions. And so we'll start off with maybe an easy one. What was your I am an honest goodness writer moment?
It's an easy one, but it's actually a really large story because I have to give context, and it's ridiculous context. You guys are gonna laugh. So My husband, Cody, who was my boyfriend at the time, was basically hired to be a romance cover model for a publishing house. And so, but right kind of before we reconnected, because we knew each other in high school, but we hadn't really been close, and we were, we reconnected 20 years later or so. But right before that, he was then hired, and then he would go to those romantic Times conventions and then do all the like cover model stuff. And so he got to be really good friends with the publishing house and the people who ran it. And each year they would write an anthology. They're like a romantic anthology of, and kind of set it in the place that it was going to be. And so Gail Delaney, who was the editor of the publishing house, asked Cody, because he had mentioned in passing that I wanted to be an author, that would I want to write a novella for their anthology, since the next convention was going to be in Reno. And I don't even write romance, but I was like, yes, I will. And I had 4 weeks to write this novella. And I am a slow writer, a really slow writer. So I cheated. We're supposed to use Nevada, so that was helpful. And then I just took Cody's and I relationship and finagled it and like made a novella. And so, but since it was in Reno, the convention was in Reno, she had to then send all of the anthologies to my house, because it seemed silly to have him sent to them and then have to travel with all these boxes of books. So they came to my house, and these, big stacks of boxes, and I open it up, and there's my name on a book. I mean, there were other people on there as well, because it's an anthology, but my name was on it, and I was just like, I'm an author. I'm an author. It was
Very
amazing.
cool.
That is an amazing story. I think you are our first to have an actual romance cover model husband, because we all think our husbands are romance cover
Right, of
models.
course,
You
of
know?
course.
Yeah. Uh, okay, moving on to the next question while I stop blushing. Um, who is your writing role model and why?
So I was thinking about this question, and honestly, as an indie author, that role model it tends to kind of split in two, because as an indie author, you have the book writing, but then you have your whole business as a writer. Like those are two mutually exclusive things. You can be one without the other. And so for my prose, I have always adored Maggie Stiefvater. She's just lyrical. She always has this place that's really centered and real, but there's magic everywhere. And if I could just get to like half the ability this woman has, I would be just ecstatic. But I also look at Annette Marie. She is an indie author, and she's not like super well known, but she has a solid career. She has merchandise and series of books and thousands of loyal fans. And she's not like this big name. And because I think I would really detest being in the spotlight all the time. That is not me. So I just, that solid career, I really envy that, and I want to work towards that. Yeah.
Excellent.
No, that's a very good point, because most people do talk about big names like Stephen King or somebody, for example. But it's great that you actually look at both sides of the writing journey, I guess, because it is a very strong business when you are doing independent publishing, which we are
Yeah.
learning.
It is not for the weak, not at all.
No, no, little retirement career here.
Yeah.
Quiet.
Okay,
Quiet.
so yeah. So, what do you love about writing?
In the immortal words of Dorothy Parker, I hate writing. I love having written. I I love the finished product. I love that I can look back and go, I did all of that, and look what I created. Because writing for me is the hard part. It is the extremely hard part. Yeah.
So, is that the answer to the next question? What do you absolutely dread about writing?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it I did to myself, but not in a bad way. I mean, I took a lot of creative writing classes. I was in a critique group for over 20 years. You tend to start over analyzing everything you do and you lose that flow. Now I never had that flow that some people have where they're just like vomiting words. I've never had that ever. But I've had to relearn and now I don't like you. Just kidding. But I've had to relearn this whole it's never going to be perfect in the beginning and you don't want it to, and just to write that really crappy first draft and get it down. And it's a struggle for me because I'll start to really analyze the sentence that came before it and worry that I'm not saying what I want to say, and say, hey, stop, you are going to come back to this. And so yeah, the writing is the hard part. I have this deep desire to create, so I will keep doing it, but it's not easy.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
What single significant life experience affects your writing, good or bad?
I think with this question, I couldn't say like good or bad. There were so many times like a teacher was really influential, or there was a time where I read something and it was really made me want to be a writer. But I guess the one thing, if I could pick out anything out of all my life, leaving my first marriage was probably the thing that saved my writing, because I was in survival mode. It was not a healthy marriage. It was, it was 15 years of a lot of things that didn't help my creativity at all. I was just surviving, and you don't have the energy to think past that, and I had 2 kids and they needed me. So leaving that marriage made me freer for my creativity, and emotionally I could then focus on more than just what would the next day bring. So yeah, I mean, I would have to say that truthfully, that was the most important thing for my writing. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, here's a fun question, because we've met your daughter. We met your daughter in
One
Reno
of the writers group
at the
meetings.
writers
Yeah.
group. So, would you recommend the writing life to a loved one, and why?
Well, Blue is him, or they, just so that
They.
you're aware. So I love that he writes. I encourage it. He is so much better than I was at that age. Like at 20, the things that he creates is incredible. He does a lot of fan fiction, which of course doesn't really apply outside of the fandoms, but I do think that eventually he'll go and he'll use all these towards, things that are things he can set out into the world without connecting it to a fandom, and I am here for it. I just think it's going to be amazing. I can't wait.
Yeah, we have to agree because our youngest is very much our middle also writes, but our youngest is very prolific and started writing very young, was submitting in her teens to traditional publishers. So yeah, it's fun to be a writer, but it's also fun to watch the next generation. And now we're hearing that one of our grandkids is also writing stories, just sits down and starts typing. So we may have done this for generations to come.
Well, those poor
First of
people.
all.
Okay, last question, and it's supposed to be a fun question. What is something fun and unexpected from your past that we won't see in your bio?
I'm such an open book. I couldn't think of anything, but as I was scrolling through social media today, this other author wrote this whole thing about how they don't do mood boards. And I was like, I don't do mood boards either. I hate mood boards. And I get them. Like, I understand why people make mood boards. Like, I get that there's an emotion attached to the picture, and then they put all the emotions together, create this. My brain's like, I don't get it. And so I was just like, I will never be the author that's like, look at my mood board, because I just do not do them.
Anti-mood board.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is funny because I think your books would really lend well to a mood board, honestly.
Maybe I
Because
need to
you've got
hire
the
that out.
color
Be like,
scheme
here's
and
a mood board. Because I can't.
Okay, so while you hold up the book, Angela, here's your last chance to sell yourself. Where can we find you on the World Wide Web, website, social media? all of that stuff. Where can we find
Well, my
this?
books are available through me, obviously, www.angelalaverghettabooks.com. But I also have them everywhere else as well, except for my anthology, which is only on that website. And then I'm on most of the socials. I'm on Facebook under Angela Laverghetta, no author, long story, just no author. Angela with a pen on Threads, TikTok, and Instagram.
Excellent. Okay, excellent. So we want to thank Angela Laverghetta for joining us again on our podcast. Always fun, always fun. We always learn something new, and we thank you for contributing the Buried Night to the world. Because when I was checking in on CC yesterday, she was smiling. So that's that's no, there you go. Maybe the biggest reward that any writer can receive. So nicely done, nicely done. You can check out this podcast and other podcasts at our main website, www.carsonhume.com. Angela is also a veteran of the Nevada Author Network podcast, which is a collaboration between our company, Two More Books LLC, and the Sierra Arts Foundation and the Sierra Arts literary community, where we get together and we talk to writers who are members of that community in order and hopefully elevate their visibility in Northern Nevada. We thank you again, Angela, for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, take care, everybody. Bye bye.